The mess kit trembled in skeletal hands as dawn broke over Camp Aliceville, Alabama, on that crisp October morning in 1943. A German prisoner, barely more than a shadow of his former self, stared in disbelief at what lay before him, his first American meal. For 3 grueling years with Rommel's Afrika Corps, he had survived on sawdust bread and bitter coffee made from roasted acorns. Now, weighing a mere 128 pounds, his sunken eyes beheld a feast that seemed impossible. Scrambled eggs still steaming, crispy bacon, white bread slathered with real butter, coffee with sugar and cream. It was more food than he had seen in months. This prisoner would later recall with amazement, "When I was captured, I weighed 128 pounds. After 2 years as an American prisoner, I weighed 185. I had gotten so fat you could no longer see my eyes." His remarkable 57-pound weight gain would be replicated thousands of times across American prisoner of war camps during World War II, creating one of history's most extraordinary transformations. While their comrades on the Eastern Front subsisted on frozen horse meat and German civilians received meager turnip rations, these prisoners consumed generous American portions, the same rations as U.S. garrison troops, as mandated by the Geneva Convention. Over 425,000 German prisoners lived in camps scattered throughout the United States, witnessing and experiencing a prosperity that would reshape not just their bodies, but their entire worldview about American capacity and democracy itself. They arrived as enemies but discovered abundance beyond their wildest imagination, a reality that would ultimately transform warriors into witnesses of American power. The walking skeletons arrive. When Rommel's desert forces surrendered in Tunisia in May 1943, medical examinations revealed an army in biological collapse. After months of failed supply lines and brutal desert warfare, soldiers who had once been the Wehrmacht's elite had become walking skeletons. The official Wehrmacht field ration, the Verpflegung, had promised substantial calories for combat troops, but by winter 1942, these soldiers received only a fraction of that amount. Their daily ration told a story of desperation. Hard bread when available, often replaced with weevil-infested hardtack that crunched between their teeth like gravel. Morning brought ersatz coffee brewed from roasted acorns, sweetened with saccharin that left a bitter aftertaste. Midday meant small portions of tinned meat, usually horse or mule, extended with sawdust filler that provided bulk but no nourishment. Evening brought a watery soup of dehydrated vegetables that expanded in the stomach but offered minimal nutrition. Dr. James Patterson of the U.S. Army Medical Corps examined German prisoners at the Iran Processing Center in May 1943, documenting widespread malnutrition that painted a grim picture of the Afrika Corps' final months. His reports cataloged vitamin deficiency diseases, scurvy cases with bleeding gums and loose teeth, night blindness from vitamin A deficiency, and edema from protein deficiency that left men with swollen legs and hollow faces. These were not the fearsome soldiers of Nazi propaganda, but broken men whose bodies bore witness to the collapse of German logistics. The recovery began immediately aboard Liberty ships bound for America. Those vessels built at extraordinary rates during the war that carried up to 30,000 prisoners monthly across the Atlantic. The first meal at sea, beef stew with potatoes, white bread, butter, coffee with milk, exceeded a week's ration in Africa. Many prisoners vomited from the richness, their shrunken stomachs unable to process the fats after months of starvation. The contrast stunned even hardened American medical officers. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison Matthews, observing prisoners boarding at Iran, noted with clinical precision, "These men looked like walking cadavers. Hollowed cheeks, protruding ribs, many unable to climb the gangplanks without assistance. We had to begin feeding them carefully. Their systems couldn't handle normal food immediately. The transformation had begun, but it would be gradual, measured not in days, but in months of careful rehabilitation." The Geneva Convention's golden standard. The 1929 Geneva Convention's Article 11 required that prisoners of war receive food rations equivalent in quantity and quality to depot troops. For America, this wasn't mere compliance, but strategic doctrine that would reshape the war's aftermath. Colonel Edward Davidson explained in a September 1943 memo, Every well-fed German prisoner is potential insurance for American prisoners in German hands. This reciprocal logic would guide one of the most massive feeding operations in military history. The office of the Provost Marshal General supervised this enormous undertaking, establishing comprehensive administration that documented daily caloric intake, weekly menu rotations, medical examinations, and weight changes with bureaucratic precision. The paperwork alone was staggering: forms filed bi-monthly from each camp, inspections by Swiss delegates, Red Cross monitoring, all ensuring meticulous compliance with international law. The standard garrison ration guaranteed each prisoner substantial daily portions that seemed miraculous to men who had survived on starvation rations. Real meat, not tinned scraps. Fresh bread, not sawdust substitutes. Potatoes, cheese, butter, milk, unlimited coffee, real coffee, not acorn brew, plus fresh vegetables and fruit. The estimated caloric total ranged from approximately 3,000 to 4,000 calories daily, with supplements available through commissary purchases using script earned from labor. German prisoners could buy cigarettes, chocolate, beer, wine, soft drinks, and ice cream, luxuries that seemed like fantasies to men who remembered when a cigarette butt was precious beyond measure. The systematic feeding program required massive logistics that demonstrated American organizational capacity. Camp quartermasters requisitioned food for thousands daily, coordinating with regional suppliers, managing refrigerated storage, maintaining kitchens that operated continuously around the clock. Witnesses to transformation. The most thoroughly documented case became legendary among prisoners and guards alike. One German later recalled with a mixture of wonder and shame, "When I was captured, I weighed 128 pounds. After 2 years as an American prisoner, I weighed 185. I had gotten so fat you could no longer see my eyes." This dramatic transformation was repeated thousands of times across American camps, each case a testament to American abundance. Georg Gärtner, a sergeant in Rommel's forces captured in Tunisia in 1943, would become famous as Hitler's last soldier in America after escaping from Camp Deming, New Mexico in September 1945. He lived under the alias Dennis Wiles for 40 years before surrendering in 1985. In his memoir co-written with historian Arnold Kramer, Gärtner described how prisoners were amazed at how well they were treated, almost coddled, with plentiful meals which their own country couldn't even afford. Military chaplain Alex Funker, imprisoned at Camp Algona, Iowa, wrote letters home that revealed the psychological impact of this treatment. "We all were positively impressed by the U.S., and that we all had been won over to friendly relations with the United States." His post-war research revealed widespread substantial weight gains among fellow prisoners, with many gaining 40 to 60 pounds during captivity, transformations so dramatic that families would struggle to recognize their returning loved ones. The physical changes were so remarkable that repatriation officers documented cases of prisoners being unrecognizable to their own families. Captain William Burke, processing returning prisoners in 1946, reported with amazement, "These men departed looking like professional athletes or successful businessmen, not defeated soldiers. Their families expected skeletons. Instead, they got men who looked prosperous." Cities of abundance in the American heartland, Camp Concordia, Kansas, housed approximately 4,000 Germans across hundreds of buildings sprawling over 640 acres of prairie. The camp established an extensive educational program offering hundreds of subjects in partnership with regional universities, but it was the kitchens that truly impressed the prisoners. Multiple cooking facilities fed thousands daily, equipped with modern electric ranges that heated evenly, walk-in refrigerators that kept food fresh, industrial mixers that could prepare massive quantities, and mechanical dishwashers, technology many prisoners had never seen in their entire lives. The camp's infrastructure represented American organizational capacity at its peak. Built in just 90 days, it featured electric lighting throughout every building, hot water systems that provided endless warm showers, flush toilets instead of outhouses, and central heating that kept buildings comfortable through harsh Kansas winters. Prisoners from rural Germany, accustomed to outhouses and oil lamps, found themselves living with amenities unknown in their homeland. Camp Hearne, Texas, nicknamed the Fritz Ritz by bemused locals, held up to 5,000 prisoners who built elaborate recreational facilities with American materials and tools. The camp's industrial kitchens operated around the clock, with central bakeries producing thousands of loaves of fresh bread daily. The aroma of baking bread became a constant reminder of American abundance. Prisoners established regional mess halls serving different German cuisines, using American ingredients to recreate homeland dishes that had been impossible to make in wartime Germany. The camp's commanding officer, Colonel Donald Drake, implemented what he called calories for cooperation. Well-behaved prisoners received extra rations, access to special meals, and commissary privileges. The result was minimal discipline problems and maximum weight gains. Drake's reports noted average gains of 45 pounds per prisoner over 18 months, transformations that seemed almost miraculous to men who remembered the hunger of North Africa. The desert's human wreckage restored. Camp Aliceville, Alabama, processed the Desert War's human wreckage with systematic efficiency that would have impressed German engineers. Commanders witnessing skeletal arrivals implemented graduated feeding protocols designed by nutritionists and doctors. The camp's medical staff documented remarkable recoveries with scientific precision, vitamin deficiencies eliminated within weeks, dental problems treated with American thoroughness, energy restored to men who had shuffled like elderly invalids. Within months, gaunt faces filled out with healthy flesh, and chronic diseases that had plagued the prisoners simply disappeared. Major Robert Harrison, the camp's medical officer, published a post-war study documenting the recovery patterns with charts and graphs that told an extraordinary story. His data showed exponential weight gain in the first 3 months, followed by steady increases averaging 2 to 3 pounds monthly thereafter. The most dramatic case he recorded was a prisoner who arrived weighing 109 pounds and departed at 181 pounds, a remarkable 72-pound gain. Camp Papago Park, Arizona, housed naval personnel who weren't required to work under the Geneva Convention. They spent their days in leisure that seemed surreal after years of warfare, attending movies featuring American stars, reading books from well-stocked libraries, and maintaining elaborate gardens that bloomed in the desert sun. The camp became famous for the December 1944 escape of 25 U-boat officers who tunneled out with spoons, planning to float down the Salt River to Mexico. They discovered the river was completely dry. All were recaptured quickly, with several surrendering when hunger struck. Even the Arizona desert offered less sustenance than American camp kitchens. The bitter irony of Homefront sacrifice. The disparity between prisoner treatment and civilian rationing generated intense public controversy that revealed the program's most troubling aspects. While German prisoners enjoyed full military rations without restriction, American families navigated complex point systems and severe scarcity. Sugar, coffee, meat, butter, all restricted for civilians through rationing books and stamps, while prisoners received these items daily without limitation. Dorothy Mitchell of Topeka wrote to her congressman in 1944 with words that captured the home front's anguish. "My 3 sons fight in Europe while German prisoners here eat steak twice weekly. I haven't seen steak since Pearl Harbor. My family's monthly meat ration is less than these Nazis eat in 3 days. How do you explain this to a mother?" Her letter, preserved in congressional records, spoke for millions of Americans who struggled to understand why enemies ate better than patriots. The government's response emphasized reciprocity through carefully crafted propaganda. Treating German prisoners well-protected American POWs, they argued. Propaganda posters proclaimed, "Their good treatment ensures ours." Radio broadcasts stressed that 90,000 American prisoners in German hands depended on German compliance with Geneva standards. Yet, public resentment simmered, especially when prisoners worked local farms and ate better than the farmers employing them. The racial dimensions proved particularly inflammatory and revealed America's deepest contradictions. Black American soldiers, including Bert Trimmingham, noted with bitter irony that German prisoners could visit restaurants where they were barred. Trimmingham's famous letter to Yank magazine described watching German prisoners being served in a Texas restaurant while he, wearing the uniform with combat ribbons, was directed to the kitchen door for takeout. This bitter irony, enemy soldiers receiving better treatment than American citizens defending their country, created lasting wounds in the national psyche. Enemy soldiers question American justice. German prisoners themselves often expressed discomfort at recognizing the injustice, even while benefiting from it. Several camp newspapers run by prisoners published editorials questioning American segregation, creating the peculiar situation of Nazi soldiers critiquing American racial policies. These publications, monitored by American intelligence, revealed the prisoners' genuine confusion about a nation that could be so generous to enemies yet so harsh to its own citizens based on race. The prisoner labor program proved crucial to American agriculture while contributing significantly to prisoner weight gain in ways that defied military logic. By 1944, over 300,000 prisoners worked American fields, harvesting the crops that would feed both America and its allies. The program generated millions in revenue while providing prisoners with supplemental nutrition that went far beyond basic camp rations. Farmers desperate for workers during wartime labor shortages competed to treat prisoner work crews well, creating an unexpected dynamic. Morning meant farm breakfasts featuring eggs, bacon, pancakes, and unlimited coffee. Noon brought hot meals delivered directly to the fields, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh vegetables, and pie still warm from the oven. Afternoon meant cold drinks and snacks to sustain energy. Evening returned the prisoners to camp for yet another full meal. Combined intake often exceeded 5,000 calories daily, creating rapid weight gain that amazed both prisoners and guards. Witnessing the arsenal of democracy. In Nebraska's sugar beet fields, prisoners witnessed mechanization that redefined their understanding of American agricultural power. Hans Dietrich, working near Scottsbluff, wrote in wonder to his family, "One American farmer with machines accomplishes what required our entire village. The combine harvester processes more grain in an hour than we managed in a week by hand." The scale of American farming operations dwarfed anything these rural Germans had ever imagined. Texas cotton operations employed thousands of prisoners during harvest season. The work was grueling under the blazing sun, but the compensation included unlimited water, regular meal breaks, and bonus food for high producers. Wilhelm Hartmann, picking cotton near Kaufman, gained 63 pounds in 14 months. He later recalled, "The Texas farmers fed us like prize cattle." One rancher said, "Can't get good work from hungry men. If only our officers had understood this basic truth." California's Central Valley presented the ultimate irony to prisoners who remembered Germany's desperate food shortages. Prisoners picked peaches, apricots, and oranges, eating freely while working among trees heavy with fruit. They watched in disbelief as perfectly good fruit was bulldozed into pits when markets became oversupplied. Kurt Vogel wrote home, "Mountains of oranges destroyed while my family survives on turnips. I begged to send them to Germany. When told this was economically impossible," he reflected, "this waste amid plenty broke something in my understanding of the world." Military medical officers tracked these biological changes with scientific precision that would influence post-war nutrition science. Major Thomas Richardson, Chief Medical Officer for the 8th Service Command, compiled statistics from 50,000 examinations between 1943 and 1946. His data revealed patterns that fascinated researchers and military planners alike. The science of transformation. The recovery trajectory followed predictable phases that medical officers documented with clinical fascination. The first month involved digestive system adjustment with minimal weight gain as bodies slowly learned to process fats and proteins again and after months of starvation. The second month brought rapid gain as systems normalized, with prisoners averaging 8 to 10 pounds of increase. Months 3 through 6 showed steady increases of 3 to 4 pounds monthly as bodies rebuilt muscle and fat reserves. After 6 months, gains slowed but continued relentlessly, with most prisoners adding 40 to 60 pounds total by war's end. Health improvements paralleled weight increases in ways that amazed medical professionals. Vitamin deficiencies disappeared within 90 days of proper nutrition. Scurvy cases, which had left men with bleeding gums and loose teeth, recovered completely with fresh fruits and vegetables. Night blindness resolved as vitamin A deficiency ended. Most remarkably, Dental health improved dramatically after treatment. Over 400,000 dental procedures were performed on German prisoners, from simple extractions to complex bridge work. Many prisoners received better dental care during captivity than they had experienced in their entire lives. German physicians working in camp hospitals documented unexpected problems, conditions of plenty rather than poverty. Dr. Friedrich Hoffmann at Camp Benner noted with professional interest, "We see diabetes emerging in men who survived on 1,000 calories daily, hypertension in soldiers who had low blood pressure from malnutrition, gout from rich foods. These are diseases of prosperity appearing in former prisoners of starvation." The irony was not lost on medical professionals on both sides. The psychological impact paralleled physical changes in complex ways that camp psychiatrists struggled to understand. They reported widespread guilt about gaining weight while families starved in bombed German cities. Captain James Murray documented what he termed prosperity trauma, the mental distress of improving health amid homeland suffering. Prisoners expressed shame at their appearance, anxiety about explaining their condition to families, and profound guilt about enjoying meals while Germany collapsed under Allied bombing. Christmas feast. While Germany starves. Christmas 1944 presented the starkest contrast between American plenty and German poverty, a juxtaposition that haunted both prisoners and guards. While the Battle of the Bulge raged in frozen forests, while German civilians received turnip rations that barely sustained life, American camps served holiday feasts that exceeded anything prisoners had experienced even before the war began. Camp menus from December 24th and 25th, 1944, preserved in military archives, document extraordinary meals that seem to mock the reality of total war. Roast turkey averaging 1.5 pounds per man, glazed ham with pineapple, mashed potatoes swimming in butter and cream, sweet potato casserole, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, fresh baked rolls still warm from the oven, multiple varieties of pie, ice cream, and eggnog for officers. Unlimited coffee and cocoa flowed freely, while German soldiers on the Western Front received ersatz coffee and stale bread. Churches and civic organizations contributed beyond official rations in displays of American generosity that baffled prisoners. The Methodist women of Hearne, Texas, delivered 2,000 homemade cookies to Camp Hearne. Concordia's Lutheran congregation provided hand-knitted scarves for every prisoner. Even communities struggling with wartime rationing shared their precious allocations with enemy prisoners, an expression of American generosity that prisoners found incomprehensible given their own nation's propaganda about American brutality. Feldwebel Richard Steinberg described the scene with words that captured the profound moral confusion. "We sat before this feast knowing our families had nothing. Men wept openly, not from joy, but from the weight of contrast. How could we celebrate while Germany starved? How could we refuse this kindness from enemies? We ate in silence, each bite a betrayal and blessing combined. Paradise behind barbed wire." Despite extraordinary treatment that exceeded many civilians' wartime experiences, escape attempts remained remarkably minimal. Just 2,222 attempts from 425,000 prisoners, with virtually no permanent successes except Georg Gärtner's 40-year disappearance. This 0.5% attempt rate was the lowest of any major prisoner population in modern warfare, and the reason was simple. Camps offered better conditions than freedom could provide. The Great Papago escape illustrated the futility of fleeing American hospitality. 25 U-boat officers spent months digging a 178-foot tunnel using stolen spoons, hiding excavated dirt in the volleyball court they'd convinced guards to let them build. Their elaborate plan to float down the Salt River to Mexico failed immediately. The river was completely dry. Within 3 weeks, all were recaptured, with most surrendering voluntarily when hunger and thirst struck the Arizona desert. Captain Jürgen Wattenberg, the escape leader, reflected decades later with rueful wisdom. "We were ideological idiots. Inside the camp, we had food, shelter, safety, even entertainment. Outside was desert, hostility, and certain recapture. We risked everything to escape from paradise into hell. It made no logical sense, only ideological sense, and ideology doesn't fill empty stomachs." Most prisoners recognized the harsh reality of their situation with German practicality. Where would they go in a vast country where every citizen was alert for escapees? How would they survive speaking limited English with unmistakable German accents, lacking documents or money? The practical obstacles were insurmountable, but more importantly, remaining in camp meant survival while escaping meant returning to combat if successful, starvation, and certain capture if not. Witnessing industrial supremacy. Prisoners working near American factories witnessed production capabilities that shattered their understanding of industrial capacity and explained their nation's inevitable defeat. At Campbell Soup facilities, they watched single production lines process more food hourly than entire German factories managed daily. The scale of American food processing revealed the logistical foundation of Allied victory. Near Detroit's Willow Run plant, they observed B-24 bombers rolling off assembly lines every 63 minutes, faster than Germany could produce training aircraft even at full capacity. The psychological impact was devastating to men who had believed in German technical superiority. Otto Levy, an engineer from Krupp Works, worked near a steel mill producing 10,000 tons daily and wrote with grudging admiration, "We finally understood this wasn't a war between armies, but between industrial systems. They could lose 10 tanks for everyone they destroyed and still win. Mathematics made our defeat inevitable, regardless of courage or strategy." Agricultural productivity proved equally stunning to prisoners from European farms. American farms yielded twice German rates per acre, using a quarter of the labor through mechanization that seemed almost magical. Irrigation systems, chemical fertilizers, and hybrid seeds created harvests that seemed miraculous to prisoners from subsistence farms where every grain was precious. The waste particularly affected prisoners who remembered Germany's desperate shortages. Mountains of potatoes left to rot because of oversupply. Grain burned to maintain stable prices. Milk poured into sewers when demand dropped seasonally. Franz Müller wrote with amazement and horror, "They destroy food to stabilize markets while Europe starves." Only a nation of unlimited resources could afford such waste. We finally understood American power, not in their armies, but in their excess. Return to ruin. Between 1945 and 1946, ships carried over 370,000 German prisoners back to Europe, living monuments to American prosperity returning to continental ruins. They departed America having gained collectively millions of pounds, their transformed bodies carrying testimony to American abundance back to a devastated homeland where such plenty seemed like fantasy. The contrast proved tragic on multiple levels that American planners hadn't fully anticipated. Returning prisoners faced devastated cities, starving families, and social tensions that their healthy appearance only intensified. Their robust condition marked them as different, privileged, somehow complicit with the enemy. Families couldn't understand how they'd gained weight during captivity while Germany starved, and communities resented their prosperity amid universal poverty. The physical reversal was swift and brutal, documented by military government surveys that tracked former prisoners losing 30 to 50 pounds within 6 months of return. Bodies built on American rations couldn't survive on German scarcity, 1,550 calories daily if fortunate, often much less. The American weight disappeared like a cruel dream, leaving men who looked older than when captured despite their comfortable captivity. Heinrich Weber returned to Hamburg weighing 186 pounds, up from 134 at capture, but 6 months later weighed only 138 pounds. The American body couldn't survive on German rations, he explained with bitter irony. I gave my food to my children, lived on potato peels and stolen grain. Better to have known hunger continuously than to know fullness and lose it. Education and enlightenment. Beyond physical nourishment, camps provided comprehensive education that would shape post-war Germany in ways that exceeded military planners' wildest hopes. Over 50,000 prisoners enrolled in courses ranging from practical agriculture to abstract philosophy. Camp Concordia alone offered 300 subjects with professors from nearby universities teaching everything from American history to automotive repair, knowledge that would prove invaluable during Germany's reconstruction. The curriculum deliberately included democratic governance, free market economics, and constitutional law, subjects that had been banned or distorted in Nazi Germany. Prisoners studied the Federalist Papers, Adam Smith's economic theories, and John Stuart Mill's writings on liberty. They debated governance models, economic systems, and social contracts in discussions that would have been punishable by death under Nazi rule. The intellectual feeding paralleled physical nourishment, expanding minds while building bodies in a comprehensive transformation program. Camp newspapers evolved from propaganda organs to democratic forums that surprised both prisoners and administrators. Der Ruft the Call, circulating to 25,000 prisoners, published debates about Germany's future, democracy's strengths, and economic reconstruction. Its evolution from Nazi mouthpiece to democratic voice traced the ideological journey of its readers. Dr. Wilhelm von Braun, teaching physics at Camp Shelby while imprisoned, noted with professional appreciation, "We had better facilities than most German universities. Laboratory equipment, current textbooks, and complete academic freedom. Jewish professors who'd fled Germany taught alongside us without hatred. This generosity of knowledge, sharing education with enemies, revealed American confidence in their system's superiority." The secret of democratic conversion. The Special Projects Division's secret re-education program achieved remarkable success through demonstration rather than indoctrination, proving that actions spoke louder than propaganda. By 1945, 25,000 prisoners had voluntarily enrolled in democracy courses, studying documents banned in Germany and discussing concepts that had been punishable by death under Nazi rule. The program succeeded because it relied on evidence rather than propaganda, allowing prisoners to witness democracy functioning daily. They experienced free speech in camp newspapers, observed racial problems discussed openly in American media, self-criticism that was impossible in totalitarian systems. Every pound they gained was proof that democracy produced prosperity while totalitarianism produced poverty. Former Wehrmacht officers who'd sworn personal oaths to Hitler found themselves planning democratic reconstruction with the same methodical precision they'd once applied to military campaigns. Colonel Hans von Luck, veteran of Poland, France, and Afrika, wrote with characteristic German honesty, "We arrived as convinced Nazis. We departed as reluctant Democrats, not through brainwashing, but through observation. Their system worked. Ours had failed. The evidence was in our expanded waistlines." Approximately 5,000 former prisoners eventually immigrated to America, becoming citizens of the nation that had imprisoned them, an unprecedented transformation from enemies to Americans. Thousands more maintained correspondence with American families for decades, relationships born in extraordinary circumstances that created unexpected bridges between former enemies. Building bridges across the Atlantic. The immigration process wasn't simple for men caught between two worlds. Former prisoners faced suspicion in Germany as potential American sympathizers and suspicion in America as former enemies. Yet many persevered, drawn by memories of prosperity and possibility that had been seared into their consciousness during captivity. They settled across America, from Hans Vega becoming a respected physician in Maine to Georg Gertner successfully hiding in plain sight for 40 years before surrendering to authorities. Marriage created the strongest bonds between former enemies. Despite regulations forbidding fraternization, romances developed through correspondence and work programs that brought prisoners into contact with American families. Over 1,000 German prisoners eventually married American women they'd met during or shortly after captivity, creating families that embodied reconciliation in the most personal way possible. These marriages represented former enemies united through love rather than conquest, producing children who carried both German and American heritage as living symbols of transformation. The 1985 reunion in Austin drew 500 former prisoners returning with American-born children and grandchildren to celebrate bonds forged in the most unlikely circumstances. Hans Kramer delivered the keynote address that summarized their collective journey. "We came as enemies, left as friends. Arrived starving, departed overweight. Every pound gained was a lesson in democracy's productivity. Every meal was a demonstration of freedom's fruits." The economics of transformation. The prisoner program's economics defied conventional warfare logic while achieving strategic brilliance through apparent generosity. costing hundreds of millions of dollars. It generated nearly equivalent value in agricultural and industrial labor, essentially self-funding while achieving immeasurable strategic benefits that would pay dividends for decades. Each well-fed prisoner became inadvertent testimony to American strength, their expanded bodies serving as proof of American capacity to both enemies and allies. The program achieved multiple objectives simultaneously with remarkable efficiency. It protected American prisoners through reciprocity. Germany treated American prisoners better than Soviet prisoners, partly due to American treatment of Germans. It alleviated critical labor shortages with prisoners harvesting crops that fed both America and its allies during the war's most crucial period. Most importantly, it transformed enemies into potential allies through demonstration of prosperity rather than ideology. Postwar analysis revealed the program's profound influence on German reconstruction efforts that shaped the Cold War's outcome. Former prisoners implemented American agricultural methods, increasing German crop yields by 30% within 5 years. They introduced American management techniques that helped drive the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle that made West Germany a bulwark against communism. Their experience shaped a generation of German leaders oriented toward American partnership rather than Soviet influence, a strategic victory that exceeded military planners' most optimistic projections. Colonel James Patterson's 1947 analysis concluded with strategic insight. We purchased future peace with present food. The collective weight gain, millions of pounds, represented American agricultural surplus converted into political capital that paid dividends throughout the Cold War. The final accounting. The German prisoners who gained 50 or more pounds in American camps embodied World War II's deepest irony and most profound strategic victory. While their homeland starved under bombing and blockade, they thrived on American abundance. While their families queued for turnip rations in bombed cities, they chose between multiple dishes. While their comrades died on the Eastern Front, they attended movies and played soccer in American camps. This impossible reality, enemies eating better than allies, proved strategically brilliant in ways that transformed the post-war world. Their physical growth testified to a profound truth that would reshape global politics. America could afford generosity even in total war. Democracy could feed even its enemies. Freedom produced plenty, while tyranny produced poverty and death. The 57-pound gain documented by one prisoner was replicated thousands of times across American camps, each pound serving as evidence of American agricultural and industrial supremacy. In the final analysis, America's greatest weapon wasn't its armies or arsenals, but its dinner tables, tables large enough to feed enemies, generous enough to transform warriors into witnesses, abundant enough to purchase lasting peace through temporary plenty. The German prisoners discovered their true enemy wasn't America, but the ideology that had led them to war against such prosperity and generosity. Every pound gained represented a pound of Nazi ideology lost. Every meal served as a lesson in democratic productivity. Every full belly provided testimony to freedom's capacity to create rather than destroy. They returned to Germany heavier in body, but enlightened in spirit, carrying within their transformed flesh the seeds of reconciliation and memories of impossible generosity from a nation powerful enough to feed even those who had come to destroy it. Their story became a testament to the power of abundance over ideology, of generosity over hatred, of the dinner table over the battlefield in winning not just wars, but the peace that follows.